Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday training with Freelance with Erica. Today, I am going to teach you the strategy behind how a 22-year-old Starbucks barista landed their very first paying Upwork client in just 6 days. If we haven't met yet, my name's Erica Knoll. I'm a top 1% Upwork freelancer out of more than 18 million other freelancers. I've since become a full-time digital nomad and retired my husband. And I have a free beginner community where every week I release a high value training or resource to help people get started in freelancing, even if you think you have no freelance ready skills. If you are not already part of that community, I would love for you to join. It's at freelancewitherica.substack.com, and Erica is spelt with a C. I also want you guys to keep in mind that I am not a content creator. I am a service provider, freelancer, and a big introvert. So it would be super helpful that if you find these trainings to be of help and they've been useful to you, if you can do all the things that algorithms usually love, like it, share it, leave a comment, leave a review. I share this out on multiple different platforms. So anything you could do in that regard would be super appreciated. Okay. And before I jump into the meat of this training today, I wanted to address just a couple of housekeeping items, and then we will get into the exciting part. Okay. So first off, if you see me glancing around, I'm reading notes here as I go through, which is one of the first things I want to mention, is that as I said earlier, I'm not a content creator, and my goal is not to be a content creator, but I know that I have to create these sorts of videos, training. I love teaching, like trainings and resources, but I'm not a video editor. I'm not a content creator. And I'm still working a full-time job basically with my paying clients to keep the bills paid while I create you these free resources. So that means if you're expecting like super nice video quality, video editing, clean cuts, uh, you're not going to get this here. So this is very much me just trying to give you what's in my brain and give it to you in the most resourceful ways that I can to help you get started in freelancing. So you're going to hear me stumbling around. You're going to see me looking at notes. And I try my best to do everything in one shot rather than doing a bunch of edits, just because for time's sake, if I try and make it perfect, you guys will never get the resources, much less every week like I'm doing. So that is one of the side effects that's going to come along with me getting these in your hands every week, is that you're going to need to stick with me, even though at times it may be rambly or if the video quality isn't great. Over time, I'm hoping that I'll eventually get to the point that I will have more time available to be able to make this fancier for you. But here at the beginning, it's going to be scrappy, guys. The second thing I want to mention is these trainings are part of my Tuesday trainings that I do for my free beginner community every week. As I mentioned, that beginner community is on Substack, and I repurpose or redistribute these trainings across multiple different platforms. Part of that is through a podcast streaming network. So Substack takes it and puts it out on all the different podcasts. So I thought that that was a great resource to go ahead and put it out. But some of my trainings may not translate very well in a podcast format. Now, I'm going to do my best to try and keep that in mind as I go through and teach. But I think it's very helpful that if you happen to be one of the people listening through the podcast, for you to be aware that this is actually part of a bigger training in that free community. And so that training that comes out every week, not only is it a video where a lot of times I'm doing screen sharing and I'm walking you through things, but there's also a long written tutorial, so that for people who learn better through writing, and that's my preferred method to teach anyway, is I love to write. So I write you a very in-depth training. I apologize if you hear my dog in the background. After I just told you I don't make cuts, I don't think I'm gonna have an option because he's trying to break open a door. 1 second. Okay, crisis averted for the moment. And now I just have to remember where I was and what I was saying. But I think what I was telling you was it's part of a bigger training. There's a whole written tutorial that goes through step by step. And a lot of times the things that I'm training on will frequently have things like AI prompts or swipe files. So if you hear me talking about that and you want those resources, heading to that free beginner community. Wherever you're watching this, chances are, if you look down in the description, there will be a link to freelancewitherica.substack.com. That's the free community. Once you sign up there, every week these will drop directly into your inbox. So you'll get that written training along with the video there, but you also obviously can keep listening on the podcast as well. So I will do my very, very best to remember that when I'm screen sharing to try and describe what it is we're looking at or to narrate that for you. But again, this is all new. So just bear with me as I do that. The second housekeeping thing I want to mention is for the handful of you that are going through 10 days to paid right now. As you know, I have family health challenges going on. And so we had to travel back across the country. We're back home in Indiana. Exciting update. River, who is the 22-year-old Starbucks barista that I'm mentioning, we're using him. That's my kiddo. He is, as I mentioned, he works at Starbucks. He's 22 years old. He wanted to make side income. And so we've been using him as the example in the $10 or the $10, the 10 days to paid challenge. Hopefully you make way more than $10. And because I wanted to show it with a real live beginner and on a beginner profile to prove that basically the strategies that I'm teaching work. And so the really exciting news is he has landed his first paying client, which we'll go through more details on that here in a minute. But so day 6 that I was recording for you guys, I took you behind the scenes to show you basically how all of that transpired, the different messages and how he landed the contract and how that's going. But with Upwork's terms of services, I can't share other people's identity, like messages, those sorts of things. So I'm having to spend way more time than I care to admit, having to blur and block everything out and do video editing, which is not my skill set. So that is the delay. So I'm working on getting that done. My goal is to have the rest of the days knocked out this week. And then for the few of you who have signed up and are waiting in the queue but haven't started getting those emails yet, I'm holding you there until I get all the videos done so that way I can get everything going on at once. And then finally, for those of you who are listening to this going, what the heck is 10 days to paid? 10 days to paid is, we're in the process of doing it right now. I've been building it over the last week and a half or so. But that is going to be the foundational place that if you are interested in starting freelancing, it is probably the most important free resource I've created, along with my Find Your Digital Skills training. Both of those on the free community. Once you land inside, there will be a start here and it has step-by-step that will take you straight into those specific trainings so you can get started. But 10 days to paid is all about how to, in a 10-day challenge, stand up your Upwork profile, start getting your proposals sent out, get them open, get them responded to, land a contract, deliver that contract, and get your first 5-star feedback. So I take everything that I have learned and I have distilled it down into a 10-day email course. And if you're interested in that, I'll have the link down below, or you'll find it again in the Substack community where you can join the challenge. And then every day the emails will just drop into your inbox with everything that you need to do. And in fact, the training that we're doing today and probably a lot of the future trainings you're going to see from me are going to be me taking just one little piece of what I teach inside of 10 days to paid and really going even deeper. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. Is for those of you that are going through that challenge. Some of what we're going to talk about here, the principles you've already learned in 10 days to paid, but you're going to see that I take this even deeper and even further, because with 10 days to paid, I obviously don't want to talk at you for 5 hours a day, but I could go on and on teaching you further and further strategies. So I'm zooming in on one piece and then taking it even further. So that is exactly what we're going to do today. So with that, let's get into what is the secret formula to make sure that your Upwork proposals are being seen and opened. Okay, so I'm gonna bear with me 1 second here while I adjust things on my end to look at my notes so that that's not working. 1 second. Here we go. So that we can go through this. All right, so you could be the most talented freelancer in the entire world, but it doesn't matter if you can't get your proposals seen and opened by prospective clients. And this is one of the biggest challenges that people have. And a lot of times they don't even know that that is the actual problem that they have. So I'm just going to say this bluntly, okay? That when you are a beginner on Upwork, almost everything is working against you, okay? You have very little to your advantage. You have 0 clients, you have 0 reviews, you have 0 testimonials. And basically everything, especially from the client view, when you apply for a job, is screaming to them, I'm brand new at this and I don't have anything really to show for it, right? So we have to take every possible advantage we can to help you stand out as a beginner so that you at least have a fighting chance to start trying to land these jobs. Now, I have a lot further strategies inside of 10 Days to Paid where it goes into like, how do you find the right types of jobs to apply for? But today, again, we're going to specifically zoom in on the strategies that get your proposals opened, because if you don't get them opened, then you're not even really getting a chance to earn that job. Okay. So when it comes to the strategy that I'm going to teach you today, this is not just theoretical. This is proof. I have the receipts. Okay. So the first one is I've done it for myself. I worked in healthcare administration and I had 0 freelancing experience, never had freelanced a day in my life. And where I ended up specializing in over time was sales copywriting, something completely unrelated to what I was doing, right? And it was something that I learned as I went and I refined as I went, as I specialized. And that's why it's so important for people to understand you, even if you don't have a great skill right now from what you do in your current jobs or your past experience, that you can directly translate and say, I love doing this. This is what I can offer. You can learn new skills. There's lots of digital friendly skills that have a pretty quick learning curve, especially with how much free content is now out here on Upwork, not on Upwork, on YouTube, on people's blog posts, super cheap courses like on Udemy, free resources like this one that I'm providing for you, plus AI. I can tell you, I learned most everything that I did about sales copywriting between YouTube videos and using AI as a coach. 90% of it came from there. I did later, as I was already successful and growing and just trying to get better and better. I did then at that point start reinvesting, and I did take some courses. But I was landing those clients, happy clients, and doing the work long before I ever even got to that point. Okay. So it worked for me, totally unrelated field. And then as I shared, my kiddo, we've been using him as our guinea pig, I guess, during 10 Days to Paid, having him follow this exact system. Every prompt that you get in 10 Days to Paid, every strategy that I share, he's just following it exactly as it's taught, with the exception of you're supposed to apply to 5 jobs a day, and he very much was kind of just doing it on his own schedule, which is fine. You totally can do it on your own schedule. But with that, it took 6 days. His first batch of Upwork proposals that he sent out on was on May 10th. And on May 16th, he landed his very first contract. Okay. So it took 6 days to go from a complete beginner to a paid freelancer, which is so exciting, right? And then here's the really cool part is this is a sneak peek for you guys waiting on the day 6 training to come out. But the job that he ended up landing, he got 3 messages. He sent out 15 proposals in total. He got 3 messages and then landed his first client. The job that he landed had 20 to 50 proposals to it. And this is one of the things I talk about is people get intimidated by that and assume there's no point in even, sending a proposal in, or how will they stand out, right? Because there's going to be other people with 5-star reviews and a 100% job success score. And despite that job, which was a better paying beginner job, despite that, there was 20 to 50 proposals. Of those, about half of them got opened, which is one of the things I'm going to teach you as we go through this. About half of them got opened. Of the half that got opened, River was the only person that this client messaged. He was number 1. He sent him a message. River was responsive, and he got that contract closed. Out of I think it was like over 40 people had proposed to that job. So if you think that just because you're a beginner and he's just like you, he has zero reviews, he has zero customers, he has zero portfolio. And so I just want to make sure you understand this is not just theory, like this is proven, okay? So let's talk about these job applications. So a lot of people, when they start on Upwork, they spend all their time getting their portfolio set up or getting their profile set up. A lot of times people waste money, or not waste money, waste time. Sorry. This is about the not editing my video. They waste time creating portfolios full of sample work and different things, right? Because they think that they have to have that in order to land a job. And then, so you spend all this time creating these proposals, like really, researching the client, coming up with how to like really stand out and crafting the perfect cover letter for the job. And then crickets, you hear nothing, right? No response. And so this happens a lot of times. People are so excited. They get started, they have a lot of energy, and they come in and they blast out a bunch of proposals, and then they hear nothing. And then they assume Upwork doesn't work for beginners like me. It's too competitive. I can't stand out. This is a pyramid scheme where I have to like pay to apply for jobs and then I never land the job. So really just Upwork's making money off me, right? So there's all these different reasons. But the real reason that you're not getting that response is actually something that a lot of freelancers, even established ones, don't realize is happening behind the scenes. And that is that a lot of the proposals never even get opened or seen. Okay. So from my years on Upwork, I can tell you because the platform constantly goes through different iterations and changes. They're constantly making updates that they used to allow us to see when a client opened a proposal. So we would send out proposals and you would go into your proposal screen and then it would tell you on there, and you'd even get an email notification or be like, someone just looked at your proposal. And then you could go in and you could see it had like a little eye and it would tell you that someone had just looked at it. And what was fascinating to me was and back then I was building my own strategies by testing and iterating and finding out what worked and what didn't work. Is I was a sales copywriter. Like it's my job to write attention grabbing headlines and hooks to get people's attention and get them to open it. And with me using best practices, still the open rate was maybe 4 to 5 out of 10. So a 40 to 50% open rate. So that means at least half, and that's if you're using all the tricks, that's if you're doing all the good things, right? So at least half of those people that send proposals, they never even get an at bat. The client's never even opening your proposal to actually look at what you said, right? And that's shocking to a lot of people. They don't realize that there's that low of an open rate. And because there is, that means it's a volume game. It means it's a volume game that we need to get more out, but then we also need to grab every possible advantage we can to try and make you stand out and to make sure that you're one of the half of that 50% that are going to be in that open. Okay. So again, it's part of what I teach in 10 days to pay, but today we're going to jump into it even a little bit deeper. Okay. So let's talk about there are 5 critical sentences that are going to determine whether or not your proposal gets opened or not. Okay. And then if your proposal gets open, you're that much closer to then being potentially hired for it, getting a message, which are all the activities that we want to have happen so that we can move you towards landing your first client. So those 5 sentences are the headline on your Upwork profile, the first 2 opening sentences on your Upwork profile, and the first 2 opening sentences on your job proposal. That's it. And so a lot of times people are busy worrying about crafting this big, intricate, detailed proposal. And really, if you focus on just those 5 sentences, and when it comes to your profile, you set that up once. You're not having to do that every time. So you're going to do that one time. You're going to get a good headline and a good opening hook. So that's 3 of the sentences. Once that's done, that's off to the side. Of course, you always can play around with experimenting and switching that out, seeing if you start to get better responses. But generally, that's just going to sit off to the side. The profile I've had, which you'd be shocked, is really basic because I understand that it's the headline and the hook that get the responses, that really what I have down below matters very little to the clients. Okay. And the profile that I have now, I've had for well over a year, and I don't change it because it performs so well. Okay. And that's, again, I'm going to teach you today. I'm going to give you the swipes. I'm going to give you everything you need so that you can do the exact same thing. So that opening headline on your profile, the hook, the first two sentences on your profile, and then the two sentences in your job proposal. That's it. If you can master those three things, how to do an attention grabbing headline for your opening on your profile, your hook on your profile, and your hook on your proposal, you are going to be so far ahead of so many freelancers. And I can tell you, I have firsthand experience from this because I've also hired a lot on Upwork over the years, that I have seen the job proposals as they come in. And quite honestly, it's shocking. Even copywriters, sales copywriters who know and use these same tactics in their copywriting don't use it on their proposals and profiles, which is shocking to me. Okay. So I'm going to teach you all the tricks, all the tips, and these are the things that are going to give you the best chance to stand out in a sea of applications, to at least give you the chance of the open, which is really important. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for a second because I'm going to take you behind the scenes and I'm going to show you what the client sees, because I think it's really important that if you can understand what they're experiencing, it will make a lot more sense as to why these things are so critical to help you get the open. All right. So let me share my screen here real quick. Share screen. Yeah. All right, sorry, there it took me a moment. So what I want to show you is this is the view of what clients are seeing when you send in a proposal for a job. And as we talked about, sometimes, many times, that proposal might have 20 to 50 or even 50 plus applications on it. So when a client logs in, they're just going to see this stacked view of proposal after proposal after proposal after proposal, right? So what we want is we want to one, study what things is the client actually seeing before they actually click anything. Okay. So when I talk about a proposal being opened, what I mean is that they either hit this view more to read your full proposal, or they clicked over here on your profile to open up your profile, which is when your profile hook becomes very important. Okay. Now I have blocked out, because again, we can't use personally identifying information. So I blocked out people's headshots and their names and where they're from. But I do want to mention real quick that the headshot is also important. So you need a professional headshot. In 10 days to paid, I give you guys some different resources and suggestions for AI headshots. So if you don't have professional ones, or if you don't like the way you look in photos, there's a really easy way to create AI headshots, but you need a clean, professional picture. And then I also have, in 10 days to paid, a Canva template that helps you put like rings and stuff. So every little advantage that we can get, right, we want to use. So, and again, for those who might be listening on the podcast, what we're looking at here is basically a behind the scenes screenshot from inside Upwork that's showing the client view. And what you can see on this is there's a headshot on one side where you can see the headshot. It'll show your name. It'll show where you're from. And then here's one of the things I really want you guys to take a look at is what you see here. This first one that I'm showing says multifaceted copywriter. That is their headline. That's what they chose as their headline. Okay. And so your headline shows, and then later, once you get a job success score, your job success score will show here. And then the next column is stats. And underneath stats, this is where I'm talking about how that really the system is broadcasting that you're a beginner, because they have the stats column and it'll show you how many completed jobs do you have, how many total hours have you worked, how much money have you earned, right? So when you're a beginner, this is a bunch of goose eggs. You've got 0 jobs, 0 hours, 0 money earned, right? Then the next column is qualifications. Under here, all it's showing is the skills tags that you chose when you set up your account. So you can put up to 15. It will show, if you look at these screenshots, a lot of times it gets maybe 5 or 6 of them that will show, and then there's like a plus 10, and then you have to like click to look at the rest. So I definitely recommend at least putting in 5, 6 of them so that you're filling up that space and being really choosy about which ones you pick, because that's what's going to show up in this qualification section. And then finally, details. And under details, it's going to be your rate, and it's going to be your cover letter hook. It's going to be the first 2-ish sentences in your hook that are going to show, and then a view more. Okay. So what I want you to notice here is, let's take a look. Let's starting with the headlines. So this first one that I showed you. So again, this is from a real job proposal, real applications coming in. So the first one's a multifaceted copywriter. The next one says store manager, eBay, Amazon, drop shipping, product listing researcher. The next one says freelancer. The next one says DevOps engineer, CI/CD, Docker, Kubernetes, GitLab. The next one says social media specialist, content creation, Canva expert. The next one says expert graphic designer, brochures, posters, announcements, and more. And then the final one says graphic designer. Okay. Now, what is critical and what I want to teach you guys, and I'm going to teach you guys with these prompts, is that this is precious, precious real estate. Okay. And so before I hop into the details of this, I want to keep that in mind, because I want to stop this screen share so that I can get back to talking to you directly. So let me real quick also just let's peek real quick while we're looking at the screen at these hooks. So this is precious real estate. This is the one of the pieces that you can control as a beginner, is what does your headline say, and how can we use that real estate to get you more likely to stand out and to get someone interested in talking to you as a prospective freelancer. And then this second place over here, this hook in your proposal, is really the only other thing that you can control right now, right? You can control your profile picture, you can control your headline, you can control your hook. You also can control what skills you put in, but I can tell you, like, clients really, it doesn't move the needle much, right? Like what your headline is here, what that hook is there. And then obviously your rate is going to be a determining factor. Again, in 10 days to paid, I go through all that with you guys. But let's look at these hooks. And because I'm going to come back to these as I'm walking you through how I want you to be doing this so that you can stand out. So here's the first one. Greetings. Copy is essentially speaking persuasively with an audience. Effective persuasion does not have to be filled with manipulative subtleties and all of that stuff. I believe that persuasive copy has to strike an emotional chord. All right, next one. Good day. I'm interested on your job offer. May I ask what's the specific niche I'd be writing for? I personally, and remember when I said even copywriters aren't doing this? So keep in mind that these particular ones are about a copywriting job. I'm interested in the job offer. May I ask what your specific niche is I'm writing for? I'm personally more specialized in fitness, dating, relationship, and adult content, but I can do any type of copy you want me to. Next one, to whom it may concern. I'm writing to express interest in the junior copywriter marketing assistant role you advertised yesterday afternoon. In my 10 years of managing accounts, including for brands including Coke, Nestle, and Microsoft. Next one, hello, Erica. Having reviewed the job descriptions and requirements, I'm enthusiastic about the opportunity to contribute my skills and to skills and experience to further elevate your cloud infrastructure on Microsoft Azure. So as you notice, I've jumped between a couple different jobs that I pulled because I wanted to give you guys very specific examples. In this, one of the things I want you to notice here, and some of you that are watching along on the video may have noticed this as I'm scrolling, is did you notice those emojis pop out visually to your eye? So when there was nothing here, and then we get to that one, not that the hook was necessarily that much better, but just the presence of a couple emojis draws the eye to it. We'll get more into that later, but I just wanted to point that out. Here's another one. Hi, Erica. I'd love to help you create cohesive on-brand designs to stand out. You can check out my work, and then they have some details there. If you're available, start right away. I'd be happy to tackle your 1-hour project. Next one, I'm excited for the chance to collaborate with you while building my portfolio. I'm eager to put my skills to work and help create a cohesive on-brand collateral for your clients. Next one, good day. I'm writing to express my strong interest in the Canva brand designer position with your good office. With my extensive experience and passion for design, I'm confident I could be a valuable asset to your team. Okay. So, and I mean this with the most kindness in my heart that I can, but all of those hooks from a sales copywriting perspective and from an attention grabbing perspective are all things that are going to cause clients to kind of glaze over and scroll past. And there's not, and we need to focus on tactics that instead are going to hijack attention, stop the scroll, and get someone to sit up and look at what you've put there and go, oh, like, and you can see, because these are real examples. Can you imagine how easy it is to actually stand out, even as a beginner, even if there's 20 or 50, if this is what someone's scrolling through, if that is what the headlines are, and that is what the opening hooks are that they're seeing, if you can take control of how you show up in your headline and your hook, then you already are winning. Okay. And so that is exactly what I'm going to walk you through today. I'm going to stop the screen share. And then let's get back into All right, hopefully you guys are just seeing me now. I don't know. My screens are not behaving very well today. I just lost everything. One sec. Okay, sorry guys. Again, I mentioned no cuts in my editing here, so you guys are just going to bear along with me. All right, so let's get into the we talked about the mistake that a lot of people are doing, which is again, not using that real estate as effectively as they could. Okay. So as you noticed, as I read to you, as we went through those different profiles, one of the things you probably noticed is that most headlines that freelancers are using on Upwork are a keyword stuffed, boring string of words that they're trying to get the algorithm to like know that that's what they do, in hopes that that's going to get them served up to more clients. Okay. So you'll see stuff like experienced graphic designer slash logo design slash branding slash you know, creative, whatever, creative content, right? So they're stuffing Canva designer, right? Stuff like SEO expert, content writer, WordPress, right? They're just putting in as many words as they can. Sometimes it'll be in a sentence form, but again, it's pretty generic. So it'll be like virtual assistant with 5 years of experience, right? That is not using that real estate as effectively as we could be. Same thing with profile opening. So a lot of times in a profile opening, you might see something like, I'm a dedicated professional with X years of experience, or I'm looking forward to helping your business achieve these goals. As you saw the real examples I showed you, a lot of them waste that real estate with using like introductions and niceties like greetings or to whom it may concern. No, we are going to cut all of that out. We want to get straight to the point. And we have to really completely shift the focus on making this more desire driven and what's in it for this client and how they're going to benefit from working with you than being about you. One of the things you probably noticed as we went through that is so much of that is about themselves, what their experience is, who they have worked with before in the past, what they can do for you, right? Rather than instead focusing and thinking about it specifically from that client and what they need and what they're going to get and what the benefits are for them, right? That when you speak that way to someone, they're way more likely to sit up and pay attention than if instead you're going on about yourself, right? So there's a nuance to it. It's a specialized way of writing to where we're still going to present ourselves as the expert that can do those things for them, but we're going to present it to them in a way where we're actually talking about them and their needs and what they want. And then same thing with proposals. A lot of times you'll get stuff like, yeah, like, dear hiring manager, thank you for this opportunity, or I have X years of experience. I would love to be blah, 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 right? Like, yawn, boring. So we want you to stand out. We want someone to sit up and go, wait, what? Right? And if you consume social media, you've seen this a million times, right? Like, people get great at doing hooks, which is that first couple of sentences enough to snap your attention so that you'll keep watching as they go on then onto a longer piece of content, because people's attention spans are tiny. We've got just a tiny little window of opportunity to get their attention. So we need to get you great at doing pattern interrupt strategy. And that is what we're going to use on your headline and on your hooks. All right. So when people are going through and they're scrolling 20 to 50 applications, their brain is in what we call system one thinking. So system one thinking, our brain is an efficient, magnificent little computer, and it is always trying to make things as easy as possible and reduce the amount of hard work or like critical thinking we need to do. Okay. So when it does it, that work is usually pretty mostly unconscious. It's fast, it's automatic, and their brain is going through and just weeding people right out. And so a lot of times that might be just looking at that skill section, right? With the big zeros, right? And just weed it out, weed it out, weed it out. And so they're not actively, presently engaged in their brain unless something disrupts that pattern and moves them into system two thinking. So system two thinking is when we get slower, something disrupts our pattern and we stop, and then we engage our brain, and now our brain's like, oh, I've got to actually stop and think about this. I want to actually stop and read this, right? And we become way more deliberate and way more conscious in our thinking. So we want to use every tactic possible that we can in order to optimize those headlines and those hooks. So we're going to leverage what's called the curiosity gap. Our brains hate when we have incomplete information. And so you'll notice this. And part of what I'm teaching you, this is kind of fun, guys, is that while I'm teaching you this for the purposes of your Upwork profile, you're going to start to see this everywhere. You're going to see it in every YouTube video you watch. You're going to see it in blog posts. You're going to see it in social media content. But even in the subject lines of the emails that hit your inbox, is they will use these same tactics because they're trying to use pattern interrupt in order to get you to click through, to open, to watch the video, to buy something, right? So curiosity always works great. When you leave something open, that's why, and people call them like clickbait headlines, but it's like when you give them a piece of the puzzle, but then they've got to actually take an action to find out the rest. That works really well as a tactic because our brains don't like having incomplete information. We're naturally drawn to go find out the answer or to resolve that piece that we don't know. Same thing with pattern recognition. Our brains naturally are programmed to look for patterns, and that when something is either disrupts it, so it's not in the pattern, that is something that causes us to shift from that system one to system two thinking. Loss aversion. So people are more motivated to move away from loss or pain than they are to move towards the gain. So the more we focus on the negative parts of their experience or the concerns, the fears, that is going to speak pretty strongly to most people because they're way more motivated to move away from something painful than they are to move towards something that gives them pleasure. Okay. Now I'm going to teach you, we're going to work on both those because it is important to speak to their desires and the outcomes that they want. But we also want to keep in mind that people definitely have loss aversion in their thinking. Social proof shorthand. So we as people always put more credence in or like validation when people can share it from someone else's perspective rather than me just telling you, right? So for example, me showing up and telling you I'm a top 1% Upwork freelancer, like for the most part, people are going to take me at my word for that. But if I immediately then pop up a screenshot showing my Upwork profile with my expert vetted badge, which is the top 1% of Upwork, now you have an outside source that's immediately validating that, right? Or I could even say, just Google me, Erica Null, Upwork. You'll go to my profile and you'll see it, right? And so by giving people some form of proof, whether that's a customer testimonial, whether it's a credential or a certification that you have, but like you actually have like the badge or the certificate, right? The more proof that we can provide that is social proof, like from other people, as humans, we value that. That's why we care about reviews. That's why reviews are so important. I'm sure you look up Google before, if you're trying to find a restaurant and you look at those star ratings, deciding which ones you're going to go to, right? So that's important. And then specificity bias. So specific claims and talking about people's problems specifically rather than generically and broadly are always going to be viewed as more credible and connect more with a person than when we stay too broad. Okay. So again, as we go through this, I'm going to teach you specifically, I have AI prompts for you that are going to help you incorporate all of this that you're learning to help you pick out and come up with your best opening hooks and headlines. All right. So let's talk about some of the attention grabbing tactics. So when it comes to creating a headline, some of the most frequent tactics that people use, and there's a whole variety, right? And there's not a right or wrong, guys. What I want you to do is I want you to play with these over time and figure out which ones seem to be performing best for you. And that's going to vary on a lot of different factors. It's going to vary on what type of services you're providing, on your own personality, right? Like some people would never use humor if it doesn't fit their personality at all. And so you don't have to use humor if that doesn't feel natural to you, because I'm going to give you 10 different tactics to use. And so same thing with the AI prompts. The AI prompts are going to specifically tell the AI system to give you a variety of these so that you can choose. Okay. So let's run through real quick what these tactics are. So the first one is creating curiosity or surprise. So again, we already mentioned that people love things that are curious and they've got to go find the answer. Using humor. Humor performs really well. Humor is what I use on my profile. It's what I do in a lot of my writing. And it's funny because I'm very introverted and I think I don't do humor well on the top of my head. I'm very much a processor. I need to like think and do it. And that's part of why I love in writing, because I have time to sit and think and then do it. But humor always performs well. I like humor. Using numbers and stats. People love numbers. They love a good stat. Just make sure that it's an actual real stat. AI can like have what they call hallucinations where it just makes stuff up. So make sure you're using real stats. My little side trick on that is if you haven't yet found or used Perplexity, that is an AI-based search engine. It's completely free and it is lovely because you can ask it to do like complete research. It's like, so instead of just a Google search about this, you can be like, give me, like well-cited sources from reputable sources with 10 different statistics about this. And it will go search the entire internet, YouTube, all of it, and it actually cites all of its sources. And then it comes back and it gives you all those details. So if you want something that's more factual based and as an actual search engine using the entirety of the internet, Perplexity is awesome for that. So use numbers or stats, ask a thoughtful question. Questions perform well, even as a headline. So you can just take what you want to say and put it in the form of a question. Using quotes. So later on, as you start to gather your first clients and you start getting your first testimonials, one of the tactics that I really like is grabbing a really powerful single sentence from a client testimonial and using that in quotation marks. There's something about the quotation marks. And again, people give validity to someone else telling them, hey, they're actually good at what they do. So just that one act of putting it in the quote so that they know that this is someone else talking about you performs well. But it even can just be quotes of just like a quote. It could be a funny quote. It could be something else, but like using quotes works well. Making a bold claim. So again, pattern interrupt, and attention disrupt, to where when you make just a really bold claim, Gary Vee is kind of like the king of this, if you know who Gary Vee is, but he'll do a lot of stuff to like almost purposely create like shock, awe, rage from people with like the hooks that he'll use, or a bold hook, because he knows that that will cause, not only does it capture attention and keep the person invested in listening, but it also gets a lot of engagement from people. People want to respond, they want to comment, they want to interact with it because they disagree with his hot take on something, right? So a bold claim works well. Using contrast, so showing opposition of like, a lot of times a website designer will do this, but I do that, and here's why, right? Like, so that those sorts of things, using contrast, the curiosity in our brains, we want to hear more. Telling mini stories. So obviously you can't tell a huge story in a hook, but you can set up and again create curiosity by doing a good setup of a story using that hook. Using emotion. Emotion always works well for tapping into feelings of people, humanizing what it is that you're talking about and standing out. So again, think back to all of those hooks that I just read you from real proposals, and you saw none of those are pulling in emotion, right? None of those really, pretty much any of these tactics that I'm talking about. So you can imagine how that would stand out among those because it's totally different from anything else other people are sending. And the last one is creating urgency. So any sort of time sensitivity or scarcity, but be honest with it. Don't use it just as a tactic. Make it be a real thing. So don't tell them like, I'm only taking one client this week if you're going to go take five, right? So it needs to be honest with it, but creating urgency works well. All right. So, next, let's talk about how I use this in my own profile. Okay. So as I mentioned, I haven't changed mine for like probably since 2023 because it's performed well. When I first came back to the platform, I did a lot of playing around, a lot of experimenting. And then once I found this one that started performing really well, I've just not touched it. And it's still to this day, it works great. So my headline on my profile, and this is really funny, it's kind of ironic. We'll get into it. But my headline is why I'm not scared of AI stealing my job. Okay. So we're doing a couple different things with this, right? We're using curiosity because we're leading in. It's a headline. Why I'm not. Well, now they might want to know why am I not as a copywriter? Why am I not scared of AI taking my job? Right. Two, AI is a really hot topic right now, especially in copywriting and other fields too. But it's very much a hot button topic. So again, that's something more likely to kind of like capture someone's attention. It's a bold claim, right? And so I'm using multiple different angles. And really, the more you can infuse more and more of these angles, the better you're going to do. Okay. So that headline, that's why I'm not scared of AI stealing my job. Then my hook basically is a continuation of it, but I'm using different tactics with it. Okay. So I want you to play around with if we only have so many places that we can use for these attention hooks. I don't want you to use the same tactic on all of them. I want you to vary them so that you have more chances because what works on one person well will work differently on another person, right? So if we employ multiple different tactics, you're going to be more likely to catch someone's attention. So I continue the conversation, but I switch gears. So instead of being curiosity and the bold claim, I say, I'm not losing sleep over AI coming for my job. Yeah, you heard me right. While some folks are quaking in their boots, I'm over here like, bring it on, Skynet. And so the bring it on Skynet is in a quote, right? I'm using humor, right? And so it's one of those things to where I'm showing personality, I'm bringing humor to it. I've got the quotes, which again, just the brain, for whatever reason, likes the quotes. So, and I've also used an emoji. As I mentioned before, emojis are a really good way from a visual perspective. Upwork lets you do very little formatting. You can't bold, um, but you can't use emojis, I think, in your headline. I don't think they allow that, but you can do them in your hooks. And so that is a really unused place where people will put emojis in their profile, but they a lot of times put it down further. So you definitely want to employ emojis in those hooks, those first couple of sentences. So I've got an emoji there. And then my second line after that, so that was my first sentence, was the one with the humor. My second sentence is using 5 stars as an emoji, and then it's a quote from a client saying Erica is simply the best freelancer I've ever worked with. She's lightning fast, responsive, friendly, and completely understood my vision, maybe even better than I did with minimal direction, right? Like I could never say that better than a client telling someone else that that is what it's like to work with me. So I pulled that up into my hook so that even though they may not see every single word of those 2 sentences, they're going to see at least that opening one with humor. Then they're going to see the 5 star emojis, again, visual hook that's going to pull them in. And they'll at least see the beginning of that quote, if not all of it. So Erica's simply the best freelancer I've ever worked with. She's lightning fast, responsive. So again, using a quote, using emojis, building social proof. So do you see how I'm employing multiple different tactics just within my profile? And this is just the profile side. We haven't gotten to the proposal side yet. Okay. So when it comes to, yeah, we already talked about this, that when it comes to using sales writing psychology, we want to make it about them, not about you. Okay. So that's one of the other really important parts, especially as we get to writing the proposals for the jobs, is that we want to make sure we keep the focus on them. So when it comes to creating headlines and hooks, I want to talk about Yeah, I've got a lot of examples in the written portion. I'm just going to read you a few of these, just that way you guys can kind of hear and understand the difference in what this looks like. So let's talk about what a typical headline looks like, and then let's talk about what these might look like afterwards when you employ the prompts that I give you and the instructions of how to rewrite these. So here's a boring one: copywriter, email marketing, sales pages, brand messaging. They have little like lines in between each of the keywords that they're stuffing in, right? Now, afterwards, instead, the one that we use for River, my kiddo, the 22-year-old Starbucks guy, his headline is zero Upwork reviews, 100% committed to wow you. Right now, imagine if instead, think about again what we looked through before, where people's headlines were like multifaceted copywriter, like store manager, eBay, Amazon, freelancer, social media specialist. And so as you're scanning, as the eyes are scanning down that list, you get to, even though he's got zeros on everything, you see zero Upwork reviews, 100% committed to wow you. Okay. Now, one of the other things about this particular headline, which we're going to get into here in a minute, is also preemptively thinking about what objections a client may have and purposefully addressing that in hooks and headlines. So you can see that he's purposely already addressing a potential objection, which is them seeing all the zeros, and he's taking back that power by calling it out first. Yeah, I have zero Upwork reviews, but I'm 100% committed to wow you, right? The 8-second copywriter, because that's all the time that you have. Let's see. It turns out my 4th grade teacher was wrong about my skills ability. So depending on whatever you're in, my copywriting abilities, about my or my design abilities, or like my 4th grade art teacher was wrong about, my graphic design abilities, right? So you would personalize that one to you. What if your design was the reason that they finally clicked buy, right? So now we're like emphasizing the dream of the client of what they're wanting. Again, we'll get into more of the psychology here in a minute. So that profile hook really matters as far as getting the attention from them. Let me give you a couple more. So now we're going to talk. So those were headlines. Now I want to talk to you about the hook portion of your profile. Okay. So this is the same sort of tactics. Sorry, I'm just looking through my notes here. The same tactics that I talked about earlier, the same ones that we're going to apply on the hook. The hook is just written more in a narrative standpoint than the initial headline. So here's an example of what would typically be a type of hook that I see on a lot of Upwork profiles. And then I'm going to give you an example or a couple different examples of how we could make this much more powerful to stand out. So a typical one you see would be something like, I'm a passionate virtual assistant with experience in calendar management, email organization, and travel planning. Or I'm a graphic designer with 5 years of experience creating logos, websites, and brand identities for clients across various industries. Like, it's not bad, right? Like, those things aren't bad, but they are very much, when a person, again, is trying to sort through 20 or 50 of them, their brain is going to be in that system one thinking. And that is the sort of stuff that they are just going to gloss right over. There's like nothing there that's going to hijack attention and get them to stop and pay attention. So, what if instead on that virtual assistant one, you say something like, most virtual assistants promise organization, I deliver time, the one resource you can't buy more of until now, right? Do you see how that stands out much differently than the one we had before? How about, your current website is leaving money on the table. After reviewing your site, I spotted 3 specific places where you're losing potential customers. Do you see how that might grab someone's attention, right? And you also notice how we're talking about them, about their website, about their money, about things that you can help them fix that are happening that are causing a negative experience. Again, remembering that people are more eager to move away from pain than they are towards the pleasure, right? So we're pointing out a pain point and saying, I can help you with it. So I'm going to save you from me reading through all these because we'll be here all day. But again, if you are following along and you have the written version, there's a lot more examples in here where I show you examples of what this might look like and what a powerful headline is versus not. All right, so let's So the whole idea here is that what we want to do is we want to create a really strong 1-2 punch between your headline and your hook on your profile. We want those two things to really serve together so that you have the most chance that they're going to hit that read more and expand your full profile to read more about you. All right. So here's an example for a graphic designer. I want to show you an example of a headline and a hook working together, but using different tactics. And then I'm also going to show you one for a virtual assistant. All right. So for the graphic designer, let's say the headline says, I turn Womp Womp brands into OMG visual experiences, right? So we're making a bold claim. We're using a touch of humor, right? And so that in and of itself is going to make it stand out. One of the other things too, the OMG is in all caps. Upwork doesn't let you write like the whole thing in all caps, but all caps can also work really good as a visual speed bump because you can't bold. You can do some all caps words, and it's just something with the eye, just like an emoji as you're scrolling. All caps can work really well to stand out too. Then the hook with that one was last week, a client called me crying, actual tears, because the logo I designed her made her finally, and then again in quotes, finally feel like a real business. That's the difference between paying for design and investing in visual storytelling. Okay. So we're doing an emotional mini story. Remember where I said before, maybe you can't tell a full story, but you can lead into one. Plus, we're using a quote on it, right? So we're engaging them from an emotional standpoint, we're storytelling, and we're pulling in a quote. Now, as a beginner, you may not have those stories yet, which is fine, but these tactics work really well for you later as you start to land clients, as you start to get those testimonials. And as we talked about, I gave you so many different ones. So you don't have to have specific stories yet. You're going to get them, right? But I want you to have all these tools in your arsenal. So as you grow, you can use these things to your advantage. Same thing, still in the graphic designer. What if your design was the reason that they finally clicked buy? So we're asking a question, but we are also really tapping into their dream desires and possibly their pain and frustration points, right? So if they're hiring a website designer or a graphic designer, a lot of times it may be because obviously a lot of times they're wanting to make money, they're trying to sell something. And if they're doing a redesign on something, a lot of times it's because it's not performing as well as they wanted it to, right? So they're looking for a better outcome. So then that leads into the hook of the average person makes a judgment about your business in about 0.05 seconds based solely on the visuals. I create designs that pass that test with flying colors, literally, and then there's an emoji in there. Okay, so again, we're using so that second one is using numbers and stats, plus we have a visual hook in there with the emoji. So again, we're trying different tactics but combining them. For the virtual assistant, I'm an assistant who remembers your mom's birthday when you don't. Okay. And then for the hook, organization isn't just a skill for me, it's an obsession. The kind that makes friends roll their eyes when I color code their kitchen cupboards as a favor. Their annoyance becomes your business advantage, right? So that one in particular, that one starts a little more me focused than I typically would like. But it ends up being about like we're using some humor in there, right? Talking about color coding this and doing that. We know that organization is an important skill that people are going to value in virtual assistants. And then we bring it back to them by saying, I'm going to turn this into your business advantage for you, right? Here's one for web developer. The website designer who delivers on time, I know, shocking, right? So again, we're building value in doing that, and we're also speaking to potential objections that they might have, worried about are you going to meet deadlines? Can you get this done on time, right? And then the I know shocking using a little touch of humor. And then the hook, 94% of first-time visitors will judge your business's credibility based solely on your website design. The other 6% probably never found your site at all because it wasn't mobile friendly or SEO optimized, right? Bold claims. We're using a stat up front, about 94%. We're making this all about potential pain points that they're experiencing and the desired outcome that they want. So like, do you see how much we're packing in just those 3 sentences, the headline and then the 2 for the hook? That's what we need you to master and get really good at doing. Okay. So you're probably like, okay, Erica, awesome, but I'm not a copywriter. You're the sales copywriter. I don't know how to write that stuff. I got you, friend. So I created AI prompts for all of this for you. Um, for the purposes, again, if you're watching on the podcast, I'm not going to read through these prompts word for word because then you'd have to write it down anyway. For those of you who are anti-AI, I know that there's some people that really do not like using AI, and that is totally okay. These AI prompts, again, are because there's a lot of people where writing just isn't their natural best skill. And AI is a fantastic tool to help you bridge that gap while you're building these skills. Okay. So, with these AI prompts, though, if you prefer to write yourself, or if you're a skilled writer and you want to enjoy the challenge of writing them for yourself, you can take all the same guidance and exactly what the prompt says in the AI, and it's telling you exactly what to do. You just instead think it through in your brain, and then you can write out your own, right? So, but for those of you who want to use the AI prompt, I have an AI prompt here that's going to take you through everything that I just taught you about what we should be doing in that headline and that hook. It packages it all up for the AI. You get to paste it in, and then there's just a couple little details that you put in. So, like what service it is that you're looking to offer for a job. So that, again, this is for your profile. So this one's high level for any potential customer. So what service do you want to do? And then the only other parts you fill in are who your ideal clients are. So describe who these clients are and what sort of services are they typically going to be looking for from you. That's it. And then AI is going to help you come up and brainstorm the combo of your hook and your headline. They're going to give you 10 different options. You can re-roll it as many times as you want, and you get to pick out your favorite ones and test them out on your profile. Okay. So then the second part I want to get to is your proposals. So the proposals is how this whole thing started, if you remember, this is about getting your proposals seen and opened. Okay. So the proposals we want to make more specific to the specific job you're applying for. So, the first thing, like I talked about before, is we are going to strip out and not use any greetings, any pleasantries, no to whom it may concern. We're going straight into a hook that will stop their scanning eyes so that they will stop and they will read what you just wrote. Okay. So this is where we need to personalize it, though, to the job and to the client. So one of the things that I want to talk about here, and this is a really, really important skill that's going to be critical for you getting landing these jobs and also just communicating in general with clients, is that I want to talk about the difference between surface level problems or tasks like that you think that they have or they need versus what's the real deep desire that's driving the ask. Okay. And so this is what I mean by that. So here's an example of the difference between surface level and a deep desire is that if someone is looking for logo design, right? And so they're looking for someone to design their logo on its surface, right? That's a pretty straightforward thing. Someone wants a design, they want a nice looking design, and they're looking for a logo designer. And so a lot of people stay at that surface level and make their proposal all about telling them about why they're a good logo designer, their experience with logo design, sending them over examples of logo designs, and everything is logo design, logo design, logo design. But really beneath that logo design are deeper desires for why that client is hiring and looking for someone to design their logo to begin with, right? So if we sit and we think about what's the real reason, what's the deeper desire, not the surface level one, what's the real reason that they want this? And it may be that they want an identity for their business that helps them feel professional and helps them attract their dream clients, right? Something that makes them stand out among their competitors. If someone's asking for data entry, what they really want, what's beneath it, is they're trying to get rid of tedious work, time consuming work, and the time suck that it takes to do that data entry, right? That's what's sitting beneath it. If they want a sales page, what they really are looking for is a sales page that's going to convert and make them money, right? They want to make sales on autopilot. They want a sales page that's going to sell for them, right? And so you need to get really good or use AI as a tool to help you get really good at uncovering what's actually sitting beneath the actual task that they're asking you to do. Because the more that we can speak to that deeper need that they have, the more you're going to stand out and connect with them more quickly. Okay. So let me show you some examples of how this looks between someone responding with a surface level response versus using a deeper desire driven hook. So a surface level one might be something like, I have 4 years of experience writing sales page for SaaS companies, and I would love to help you with this project, right? So again, we're speaking to the task. I have X amount of years. I write sales pages all day long. I write for this particular type of client, and I want to help you, right? But if you go deeper and you go into that deep desire hook, instead, that might sound like, what if your sales page didn't just describe your software, but actually pre-sold prospects to so thoroughly that the buy now button felt like its next logical step? That's exactly what I'll create for you. Do you see that difference, guys? Like, that's a huge difference. And think about it, put yourself in the consumer seat. If you were the client and you were looking at those two different proposals, you're looking for a sales page, right? Nothing wrong with a person saying they have 4 years of experience, they work with SaaS companies, and they're an expert in it, but they're not actually speaking to that person's emotions. They're not actually connecting and showing that they deeply understand what that person really needs. And so we want to stand out by showing them we actually get it. We actually get what they need. Okay. Let me give you another example. So here's another surface level hook. I'm an experienced sales page copywriter with 3 years of experience writing high converting copy. Again, nothing wrong with that, right? You're experienced, you're a sales page copywriter. We have 3 years of experience, and we throw in for good measure that it's high converting. So the high converting touches a little bit on desire, but we're not. Remember when I talked about specificity, like being specific? That's a good example of being broad, being general, just saying like high converting. We want to make it tangible and concrete. Okay. So now let's get down to a desire based one. What if your sales page was still bringing in customers 2 years from now, long after my invoice becomes a distant memory? That's the difference between hiring a copywriter and investing in a revenue generating asset, right? Crazy, right? So, do you see how we got really specific? So, instead of talking about high converting as a general, we're actually painting a picture. We're getting super specific by making them envision the situation where now they're mentally thinking about their sales page 2 years later, still bringing in sales, still converting, still being high converting, and long after like paying off anything that they invested in it. So that ROI is super high without us using that generic terminology, right? We could be like, I could write sales pages that give you a 4x ROI, right? Boring. So we want to get specific. We want to engage their emotions. All right. So, from here, one of the other things with your proposal hooks, and this is again just a tactic to play around with. It's not that you have to use it in every single hook, but I do want you to play around with experimenting so you can figure out which ones are performing better than others. So, one of the tactics that you can use that I think is pretty powerful is when we preemptively try and get in front of objections. So, you heard me point this out earlier with River's example of like 0 Upwork reviews, right? So, I want you to think through when or have AI help you think through when you're applying for a job, what sort of objections might they have, right? Are they going to be concerned about your lack of experience? Are they concerned about what if they spend the money and they don't like the work you do? What if they have um they're on a tight deadline and they want to make sure that it can get turned around in a quick amount of time? What if they're afraid it's going to sound like generic blah blah from ChatGPT, right? So it's going to depend on what sort of service, what sort of job it is. But if there's something obvious that is going to be something that most likely they might have an objection, we want to try and get in front of that. And so whether that's employed in the profile hooks or whether that's in your proposal hooks, that's always a good idea to try and get in front of those. So that way we're dissolving any friction that they have over saying yes or wanting to work with you before they even ever have to bring it up, right? So here's an example of two hooks that address those fears preemptively. Okay. So this is just one type of hook that you can use, but this one's preemptively getting in front of objections. So, are you tired of designers who make you wait for weeks only to deliver something that looks nothing like your vision? So, we're starting with a question. We are painting a scenario that is one of the pains. So again, making a move away from pain. But do you see how we're also starting to head off potential objections, worrying about the timeline, how long it takes, it not looking like what they had in mind, right? So then I offer a 48-hour turnaround on initial concepts and unlimited revisions until you're doing a happy dance around your office. No risk, no frustration, just designs that you'll actually use. So that's the opening hook. Those are the two sentences. And so do you see again, we're packing it. You want to make every word work overtime for you. So 48-hour turnaround, unlimited revisions. We're going to do it until you're thrilled with it. There's no risk, no frustration, designs that you'll be able to put into immediate use, right? So we're building up the dream, we're breaking down any potential objection they have to make it so that, again, it's just an easy yes, even though you're a beginner. Here's another one. Your sales page will be designed for one thing, conversions, and conversions is in all caps. Conversions that pay for themselves within weeks, not months. And you'll see the first draft within 48 hours so that we can adjust course early if needed. So again, and then there's emojis in both these. So we're using a visual hook. So I just want you to really just kind of absorb all this stuff. Now, it's a new skill. It's going to take some time, but the longer you do this, the more proposals you send, this will start to become second nature and you'll start to get really good at identifying like, oh, that was a good hook. Like that was a powerful hook. You're also going to start to see themes as you send out these proposals on which ones seem to be doing best. And the more data you collect over time, you'll really start to see that play out. I have a free proposal tracker, by the way, which I will link down below in our Substack lesson. So again, if you're listening, make sure you grab that. But I have a free proposal tracker that is a great way for you to be able to quickly look through and be able to start to identify, okay, let's look into all my ones that I won. And then when you go start peeking into those, you might start to notice, you know what, almost every single one of these is one where I'm using humor, or almost every single one of these is one where I was using stats, right? And again, it's going to depend on the type of client that you're focusing on and the niche that you're in. So humor will work really well. Humor works great in copywriting for me, but like if I were doing um like programming or coding, I don't know. Humor works good no matter what, but I would probably, knowing that those people probably are more like analytical sort of people, I might try stats more. I might try social proof more, right? And that's the whole reason we experiment. I want you to experiment so you can start to figure out what's working really good versus not. So again, in the written tutorial, I have a full prompt here for you. Again, if you don't want to use AI, just read the prompt and then you're just going to write it yourself. But for those of you who want to use the prompts, it's right here. It will help you again come up with 10 different options, re-roll it as many times as you need to until you find hooks that you really love. But these prompts are written giving it all these details that I'm walking you through so that you can just pop them in and use them. All right. All right. And then here is an example. Yeah. So we're almost done here, guys. We're gonna wrap up, but I'm gonna read you from what's in the written training a before and after example so that you can see or hear how this actually plays out and what a difference it makes in helping you stand out as a beginner on Upwork. Okay. So the before version, the headline, web designer slash WordPress expert slash UI UX designer. The profile hook on the before profile. I'm a web designer with 3+ years of experience creating responsive websites for small businesses and entrepreneurs. And the proposal hook. Hello, thank you for posting this job. I'm interested in your website project as I have experience with WordPress and can deliver a professional site within your set time frame, right? Nothing wrong with any of that. And this is very typical of what I see in so many profiles, so many applications, okay? Here's the after using the and this is just one example, but using prompts and the instructions that I provided here. So profile headline, I build websites that turn your visitors into customers while you're sleeping. Profile hook, did you know that the average visitor decides whether to stay or leave your website in just 3 seconds? That tiny window is where most businesses lose thousands of dollars in potential revenue. And the proposal hook, your competitors' websites are putting customers to sleep. Let's build one that wakes them up and gets them reaching for their credit cards. And it uses the credit card emoji. I reviewed your current site and immediately spotted 3 conversion opportunities that you're missing. Right? Do you see the difference between that, guys? Like, so that is just employing good copywriting practices to those three areas as a beginner will completely change your open rate. And the more proposals you get open, the more likely you are to start landing jobs. Because again, that open rate's so low to begin with that we need to give you every possible advantage that we can. All right. So here's your next steps. I want you to take everything that you've learned today. I want you to grab, if you don't have a copy of the written version of this training, I want you to hop over to the free community. I want you to come to this training and I want you to grab all of the prompts and all of the details so that you have it in writing. And I want you to go audit your current profile headline and hook. If you have not yet set up an Upwork profile, if you're just interested in freelancing, but you haven't actually started, sign up for 10 days to paid because I'm pretty sure on day one, I walk you guys through and we do an actual like step-by-step setup of your profile of your Upwork account from the very beginning, from day zero. Okay. So, but if you have one, I want you to audit your current profile, headline, and hook. Then I want you to use these AI prompts to generate new options that you can experiment and play with. And then I want you to start applying the proposal hook templates that I have given you, or those techniques over your next applications that you set out. I want you to start tracking those results using that free proposal tracker that I created for you guys. And then, as with everything in this, I want you to keep on experimenting and iterating, right? So we want to get the data. We want to look at what the data is telling us. And then as we get that information, we're going to apply that so that we can keep improving and keep getting better open rates, landing more clients, right? And a lot of you have heard me say this already, and I'm going to continue to say it. It's never harder than when you're a beginner to get started on Upwork. But if you are willing to get through the grind and the hump of being a beginner, of landing your first clients, getting your first reviews, starting to get some momentum on the platform, it becomes so much easier. I promise you. It's very much an upside down process where you're going to put in your most effort for the least output, the least amount of money up front, and it's going to feel frustrating and it's going to feel like a grind. But I promise you, it gets so much easier. But you have to get through this first part. And that's why so much of my content is going to be focused on helping you get past this like first really grindy part of it. And you just employing this part alone is going to, again, put you ahead of many established freelancers that are doing the exact same thing that I showed you in these examples. And so when you see that someone is applying to 20, if you see a job and there's 20 to 50 proposals already in, and you assume, oh my gosh, like there's no way, that's exactly why River got hired from that beginner job with 40 proposals in it, because he used these tactics and it's how he stood out, because it's just a sea of the exact sort of applications I showed you today. So hopefully you can imagine after hearing those, seeing those, and then seeing what the new version looks like when we employ these techniques, how that will make you stand out, even if there's 50, 100 applications, right? So we need to get you at bat, swinging more applications over. Don't overthink it, guys. The AI prompts are here to help you so that you can bridge this gap more quickly. Okay. There's nothing wrong with using tools to your disposal to help you get past the parts that may not be your strongest areas. And so if writing just isn't a strong area for you, there's no shame in using AI copywriting. And also just another interesting note, for some of you, if you haven't been following along on all the trainings, or you're new to the community, on purpose, almost everything that you're seeing, every written tutorial, every post that I put on Substack, every social media post caption, on purpose, I am writing every single one of them with AI because I want you to see demonstrated that AI doesn't have to be generic, doesn't have to be blah, blah. And that if you instead bring your brain to it and use AI as a tool rather than asking AI to do all of the thinking for you, you can create wonderful content with AI. So I'll teach more on that later. And that also reminds me, that was one of the things that earlier when I said the irony about my headline saying why I'm not scared about AI stealing my job, is the irony in it is that from the very beginning, I use AI very heavily in my copywriting work, but I'm also 100% transparent in my profile that I use it. And my clients love that I use it because it saves them time. They get great creative output from it, but I'm bringing my brain, I'm bringing my creativity. I'm I'm guiding AI to go where I want it to go. Okay. And so when you can learn how to use a tool to your advantage and your client's advantage while bringing your brain, your creativity, it allows someone like me to where I don't even consider writing formal writing, like proper grammar writing. Like that's not my strong suit. I'm great at creative writing. I'm great. I love creative writing. I love putting my thoughts down into words, but I have never been like a grammar Nazi. And so AI helps me really. I just realized that's probably offensive. I shouldn't have said that. Sorry. But grammar, whatever you want to call it. But AI allows me to bridge that gap. And so if you have gaps, like don't feel shame in using AI. Now, I also don't want you, if you're doing copywriting and you decide to use AI, I think you should be incredibly transparent, like I was in my profile, because there are some people that have big feelings about AI. And in the copywriting world, as someone doing copywriting on Upwork, I can tell you majority of people are okay with it. I think if they know that you're not just loading something in, letting it spit it out, and then passing it back to them, if you're actually bringing thought and nuance and details about their business and best practices, and you really know how to guide and use AI, they don't care at all. But there are some, and a lot of them will be upfront when they do the job postings where they'll specifically say like do not use like AI or no AI allowed in this project. So then you just don't apply to those if you happen to be one of those people using AI. But from the very beginning, openly, and so my profile, once they get into that hook, so it's just interesting because that hook is what captures their attention. And then when they actually read it, I go into and I actually sell them on why AI is a great tool to be using, and that as a copywriter, people should be employing AI for efficiency, for creativity, for brainstorming, to bring in more options and better copywriting for them. And that I know how to use that tool and my natural skills to bring them the best of both worlds. Right. And so I tell them that story inside my profile. And that's worked really well. I can't tell you how many clients have told me that they hired me just because of that headline. That's it, just the headline. So that's why headlines are so important. Headlines and your hooks. All right. So, the last part here is that from here, guys, you now have everything that you need between these prompts and this training for you to go completely transform your profile, your proposals in the client's view when you start applying for jobs. This is, again, going to help you be head above shoulders with other people applying. It's going to make you stand out. And I want you to remember that as a beginner freelancer, that sometimes it depends more on you being seen than being good at what you do. So if you're busy worrying about whether or not you have the skills and whether or not you're going to be good, it's like we're not even there yet. We first just got to get you seen. Like you got to just have people even opening up profiles, all right? But you now have the skills and the tools so that you can start to hijack attention and start to watch your open rates climb, all right? So from here, again, this is just a further expansion, zooming in on just one piece that I teach inside of 10 Days to Paid. So if you are new on your freelancing journey, if you've maybe tried it before in the past, it didn't go well, you gave up on it like I did back when I first tried in 2019, or maybe you've tried, you've dabbled, and it wasn't a good experience, I take you by the hand in 10 Days to Paid. I walk you through every single step that will help you get going and get some momentum on Upwork. It's completely free. So hopefully, if you found this helpful, you'll join 10 Days to Paid because that is the place where I'm going to teach you everything you need to know in order to get up and get started. And I will be back in your guys' inbox next Tuesday with our Tuesday training, which I haven't decided yet what it's going to be about, but it will be equally as helpful as hopefully this one was for you guys. And again, just final reminder for those of you in 10 Days to Paid right now, my goal is to have videos coming out to you starting next week, earlier if I can, but for myself next week, just to give myself some space to get this editing and the recording done while still paying the bills. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. and I will see you guys next week. All right, bye guys.